So then he asked us, he said, can you quote me this verse? So the two of us looked at each other. I was looking at him. I thought, all right, tomorrow Krishna goes on, he'll quote the verse. And he was looking at me, and he thought, Bhagavad will do it. Neither of us knew the verse. Then Prabhupada said, just see, you are not reading my books. He said, every day you have to read my books. You have to study my books and learn my books, just like a lawyer learns the law books. He said, you must know everything, chapter and verse. He said, if you do not know, how will you preach? How will you teach these men unless you know my books? Every day you have to read my books. And he said, do you know that every day even I read my own books? And both of us were looking at it. He said, do you know why I read my books? Again, we didn't want to venture any answers because we already realized we were in a lose-lose situation. It's like nothing we could say was going to be right. So he said, I read my books every day because even I learn something new when I read my books. He said, do you know why I learn something new when I read my books? He said, because these are not my books. I do not write these books. And he spoke. And when he started to speak at this moment, it was like something came over him. It was like so mystical. He said every morning, he had his hand up like this. You know how Prabhupada used to put up his hand like this? Every morning, when I sit here to read my books, to write my books, Krishna comes personally and he dictates to me what to write. He said, and so I simply take dictation from Krishna and I write these books. He said, therefore, when I read them, even I learn something. And it was like so dramatic the way he said it. And we just felt the weight. And I was sitting there, I was thinking, I'm speaking with the person who's speaking with God. He's there. He's right next to God. I'm only one person removed from God. It's so close. And yet I knew, because of the state of my own consciousness, how far away I actually was. But that by some grace, I was being placed just right next to God by being with Prabhupada. It was just so amazing.
Prabhupada called me into his room in 1967 in New York. The devotees from Boston, and I was one of them, came down to see him. And after his darshan, he called me in and handed me one print, about that big, of Radha and Krishna and the 8 gopis. And he asked me to make a big canvas of that, really big, like 4 feet by 5 feet. And he began explaining from the Brahma Samhita how, we didn't know the Brahma Samhita then, but how the palaces are all made of touchstones, and the cows give nectar-like milk that fulfill everyone's desire, and the ground is muddy with the milk of the cows, and the trees are wish-fulfilling trees that supply all eatables upon anyone's demand. And the gopis, the associates of Radharani, they serve Radharani and Krishna by fanning them and singing and dancing and offering them foodstuffs. So I couldn't relate that much to the exalted description, but as I was looking at the print, my only response to all that beautiful words was, how come the gopis aren't looking at Radha and Krishna? Shouldn't they be looking? Because they're looking in different ways, holding their serving paraphernalia. So Prabhupada said, when you're dancing, you don't always have to look. And then he told me to make Krishna a little bit smaller. He said, Krishna looks a little fatty, and he's too tall, so make him a little thinner and shorter. And then I said, those flowers there, they're all blobs, because the artist hadn't made details. What flowers should I put there? So he said, you can take any flower and transport it to Vrindavan. And then I said, I heard that Krishna's eyes are red. Sometimes we hear the red lotus eyes. So he said, reddish. Then he said, reddish black. And then I asked him, well, you say that Krishna is the color of a fresh rain cloud, but what color exactly is that? So Prabhupada he lowered his head, and then he put his hand up on his head like this, and he gradually brought his head up and his hand down, and then by the time his hand was like this, he said, they say Krishna is the color of a fresh rain cloud, but I do not know what color that is. Which, in his great humility, he showed that he really knows not only from scripture, but from realization. One amazing thing about him is that, just like if I'm looking at your camera here, I don't have to be very intelligent to describe your camera. It's black and it has these legs on it and it's made of metal, because I'm seeing it for what it is, and I'm an ordinary person. So with Prabhupada, even an ordinary person could look at him and hear him say simple things or give simple gestures and get great realizations about the nature of a pure devotee, because he emanated the truths about him. It was emanated just by his glance or his words. So just by him saying that, you could feel that he can see Krishna.
He taught about Krishna Lila, of course, also when we used to venture a question about Rasa Tattva to Prabhupada. More often than not, he would answer to the effect, why don't you go there and find out? What I can tell you about that is something, but what will you know by my speaking about it? By your grasping onto it intellectually. Not that it shouldn't be talked about, and of course it is in his books, and he does talk about it within certain parameters and so forth, but knowing, really knowing, will be by going there, and that means through service and sacrifice. And we hope really that devotees will be inspired for that, and newcomers as well, to serve his message, and then know him really, because it's a big subject, Prabhupada. Some knew him as Swamiji, and then when he said now there will be initiations, some didn't want to know him any further than that. They didn't want to take it any further. And gradually he came out in terms of his mission and what it was about, and some people stayed on, and some people decided, well, that's enough for me. And we should try to go the limits, and it will require unlimited service and sacrifice, the likes of which he personally exemplified in relation to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada, one of his characteristics was that he took the suggestion of his guru as an order. He used to say, my Guru Maharaj ordered me, if you ever get money, sell books, print books. It's not that he ordered him, really. If you look at the history, he mentioned it to him. He wrote in a letter, it might be good for you and others if you speak in English. And I think at Radhakund it was, Prabhupada told him, if you ever get, Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta told our Prabhupada Bhakti Vedanta, if you ever get money, print books. And Prabhupada took it as an order, a suggestion. In his commentary on Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana, this verse from Bhagavad Gita, one-mindedness of fixed intelligence required for spiritual life. Then he quotes in his purport Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Guru Vastak, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadu Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutopi. So this was his idea of one-mindedness, to service to the order of Guru. And the order of Guru to him was a suggestion. He took it as order and life and soul. So he's very extreme on this point. If we can follow that example of Guru Nishta, then I think we can know him really and substantially as he is.